All right, how is everybody this morning? We want to welcome you to the Woodlake Addiction Recovery 12-Step Education. In this session, we're going to be on step 12. And step 12 is what we've been trying to get to with the first 11 steps. Step 12 says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. The first 11 steps give me the spiritual awakening. And it says we tried to carry this message. And the message, and what we're going to try to get across in this session, the message that I'm supposed to be carrying to the new alcoholic in the meetings and to the fellowship is if you take the steps, the first 11, the result's going to be a spiritual awakening. Now, if you're joining us remotely, if you're tuning in to us, we ask that you please put your speaker on mute, okay? Because if you don't, if you start talking and your mic's not on mute, you're going to disrupt the whole recording that we're trying to do today. So anybody tuning in remotely, we ask that you mute your mic. Now, in this session, we're going to try to go a whole session without any breaks today. We're going to go about an hour and 15 minutes in this session today. If you've been paying attention in the last couple of sessions, what you know is the first 10, 15 minutes, we do a recap. And what you're going to sort of know today, since we're on the 12th step, is why we do these recaps. See, because anybody who carries this message effectively, they're going to be able to spit out some things to the newcomer. Problem, solution, plan of action. Now, those three things, problem, the solution, and the plan of action, that's basic problem solving. And I don't care what the problem is. It could be finances, it could be your marriage, it could be plumbing, it could be your car. To solve any problem, you got to have the three pieces to the puzzle. You got to know what the problem is. You got to know the solution to the problem. And then you got to have a planned program of action you can take that'll get you out of the problem into the solution. And if you put those three pieces of the puzzle together, you can solve any problem. Now, you ask any alcoholic who's ever came into a 12-step based, big book based treatment center, which is what you're at. You ask any alcoholic who's ever came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, they have no idea what their problem is when it comes to their drinking and drugging. Therefore, they come up with a bunch of cockamamie-ass solutions to a problem they don't understand. So the action that they take will be wrong. They'll never get into the solution, and they'll always be stuck in the problem. Now, when I first came into treatment, I had no idea what my problem was when it came to drinking and drugging. Look, I had a lot of people told me what was going to happen to me if I kept drinking and drugging, but I already knew that. See, they were telling me shit I already knew what was going to happen. But not one person could tell me why. You know, I remember this vividly. My mother asking me, Kevin, why do you do what you've been doing? And I looked at her and I thought about it a minute and I went, I don't know. I don't know why I keep doing it. When I came into that 12-step based, big book based treatment center, and they laid out the problem, the solution, and the plan of action, I went, son of a bitch. Now I know why I kept doing what I was doing. And it gave me some hope because they gave me a solution. And the plan of action that they laid out, I was willing to do just about anything at this point. Now, we're going to go back, we're going to recap. And people who effectively carry this message to the new alcoholic, they can spot these things out, they can spill them out just like that. Problem, solution, plan of action. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was in treatment, some things started to become clear to me. And what I started to want to do after about a couple of weeks in treatment, I wanted to help other alcoholics. Now, I had no idea I would be in this field and have be licensed to do it. I really had no idea none of that would happen, but I knew I wanted to help people with this message like I had been helped. And I think every alcoholic who gets it, who has the awakening as a result of the steps, becomes very, very effective at helping new alcoholics who come into the program. And it's very rewarding, and no drug or alcohol ever made me feel like I feel when I can help somebody. Now, we're going to go back. We're going to recap a little bit. We're going to get all the new people up to date. Some of you people who have been listening, hopefully you can pick up some things a little different since you're changing and growing on a daily basis. Now, the first thing they want to try to get across to me is the problem. And step one is a problem statement. And what they tell me is it's twofold. Part of it centers in the body, and part of it centers in the mind. Now, the physical part of this thing is, as Dr. Silkworth tells us in the doctor's opinion. He says the physical allergy manifests itself through the phenomenon of craving. What that means is every time a person like me who has this allergy dumps the first one into their body, that allergy sets off a physical craving. My body takes over and my body starts to tell my mind what to do, which is go get some more. And I end up on one of these things. It's called a well-known spree. And when I end up on a spree, Baton Rouge and surrounding communities better watch out. Now, when I come up off a bad spree, when I've got financial trouble, legal trouble, family trouble, work trouble, I emerge remorseful with a firm resolution not to do that shit again. So what I try to do is live in my own skin for a couple of hours, sober, a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months. And I start a little emotional buildup here. I get irritable, I get restless, I get discontented. The mental obsession kicks in and overrules everything and tells me, hey, I know how you can feel better. Put one in you. So I put one back in me, set off the allergy. Now it's physical again. The obsession's left for the moment. The allergy produces the physical craving, which puts me right back on a spree. And I come off that spree, I emerge remorseful with a firm resolution not to do it again. I start another little build up sober. Obsession kicks back in. Says, hey, you need some relief, which you probably do at this point. So what I keep doing is putting the first one in, allergy, craving, spree, emerge remorseful, I quit. The obsession kicks back in, I start, and I go through this over and over and over and over. Now, the big book says, if I take this physical allergy and I couple it with the mental obsession, if I put these two things together, these two things render me powerless. Now, if I'm powerless, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. Even Stevie Wonder could see this shit. It's going to take some power to overcome me being powerless. Now, how does a person like me, who was like this for years, 27 to be just about spot on, I drank and drugged for almost 27 years. And what I would do, I would start, I would go through all of this shit, I'd quit. I'd have a build up, I would start. I'd go through all this, quit. And I did that over and over and over and over. Now, step two is where they're going to lay out the solution for me. And step two says, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore me to sanity. Now, when I first came into the program, I got to tell you that a lot of people, when I heard the term power greater than myself, the first thing that came to my mind was God. And I don't know about you, but when I first came in here, I had a hard time believing God wanted to have anything to do with my ass, especially after the way I had treated his other children over that course of 27 years. So some people who really knew this program, they say, take the God idea, when you first start, and put it to the side. Now, I had no problem doing that. I've been putting it to the side for 27 years almost. And they told me to substitute the fellowship in Alcoholics Anonymous as a power greater than me, and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, the steps, as a power greater than me. Now, the fellowship in AA. Where I'm going to find this fellowship is by going to the meetings. In these meetings, I'm going to get a lot of support from people who have recovered and can tell me how to go about recovery. So the fellowship is going to the meetings. I get a lot of support. But the real power comes through the program of AA. That's the steps and the directions, precise and clear-cut directions, how to take the steps, are in the first 103 pages of the big book. And if I do that, I'm going to have what they call a personality change or a spiritual awakening. So if I take these two things, fellowship and program, and combine them, I'm going to tap into some power. Now, step one, they tell me the problem. Step two, they give me the solution. And in step three, they go, decide which one you want more. Do you want to remain here, or do you want to seek this power? Now, if you want to remain here, what you need to do is absolutely nothing. You're already there. You have arrived. Now, if you want to get out of the problem and come over here and start living in the solution and join us to carry out step three, you got to shut your mouth and you got to follow that decision with some action. And we got some action steps that will get you out of the problem into the solution. And the action steps are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And these are the steps we take, 4 through 9, which tap me into the power. And once I'm tapped into the power, what I do on a daily basis is 10, 11, and 12, which keep me tapped into the power. Now, in this session, we're going to talk on step 12. Now, step 12 is a promise. It says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. Now, if you read that backwards, the first part of step 12, it says these steps, the result of spiritual awakening. So, what's the result of taking the steps? A spiritual awakening. And that's the message, see? Because it says right after that, we tried to carry this message. What message? If you take the steps, as a result, you can have a spiritual awakening. That's the message. Now, taking the steps and having this spiritual awakening. Step 12 does not say, having had a spiritual awakening is the result of sitting in a meeting. Because if you have the obsession and the allergy, and all you do is go sit in a bunch of meetings, you won't have a spiritual awakening. What you're going to have is a rude damn awakening. Because this obsession, just sitting in meetings, won't go away. Because just sitting in the meetings won't tap me into the power. I got to go to the meetings and take the steps. Now, in step 12, okay, we're going to take spiritual awakening We're going to take the spiritual awakening. Let's do it like this. We're going to put the awakening here, and we're going to put the spiritual experience here. Now, if you have studied the big book, which you know is in the back of the big book, they went in the back and they put an appendix in the back of the book. Now, when somebody puts an appendix in the back of a book, what they do is they tell you basically, we made a mistake. Instead of rewriting the whole book, they go in the back and they explain in this appendix the mistake that they made. Now, when the book was first written, they believed that you had to have a spiritual experience like Bill Wilson, co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, did. A spiritual experience, okay? It happens suddenly. Like, bam. If you've ever watched Bill's story, Bill's sudden spiritual experience, he described as he was in detox, he was in his room, and he just had a feeling of complete defeat. And he says he finally cried out, if there is a God, show yourself and help me. I'll do anything. And as Bill described it, his room lit up in this great white light. Bill had what they call a sudden, spectacular spiritual experience. All of a sudden, Bill was changed, just like that. Now, what they found out after the first printing of the big book is that most people don't have a spiritual experience like Bill had. Most have a spiritual awakening as a result of taking the steps. And an awakening, it happens a little slower. It's slow, okay? But the awakening and the experience, the end result is the same thing. The end result of a spiritual awakening is a personality change. It just happens slowly as a result of the steps. A spiritual experience produces the same thing, a personality change. It just happens sudden. Now, what most people are going to have is the spiritual awakening. See, I think one of the mistakes a lot of people make is when they first come into treatment, AA, they think all of a sudden, after the first meeting, that everything is supposed to have changed. Well, it doesn't work that way. See, you got to do something. And when you start taking the steps, like the book says, each step I take, I start to awaken a little bit. And finally, around step 10, my head exits my butthole. And I have a spiritual awakening. I start to have a personality change as a result of the steps. Now, in your big book, I want you to go, let's see, I want you to go to page 24, 25. At the bottom of the page, okay? I tell you what, go up to the middle of the page on page 25. We're gonna read this and get you to start to see some things. Now, what they're doing is they're explaining is what the steps do. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experience. Now, they got a little asterisk right there, and it tells you, okay, at the bottom of the page, it says fully explained Appendix 2. So that's the very first time. That's the very first time that they're going to want me to go in the back and study the Appendix 2. Now, let's keep reading. It says we've had deep, effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty, see, not belief, certainty, knowing that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we can never do by ourselves. If you are seriously alcoholic as we were, we believe there's no middle of the road solution. See, you got to be all in or you're all out. Now, what they just told me right here on page 25 is go in the back and study the Appendix 2. Now, I want you to go over to page 37. On page 37, what they're going to do right there, they're going to tell you some things about the obsession, and they're going to tell you some things about how to carry the message, okay? Now, I want you to go back to page 27, okay? I want you to go to the bottom of page 27. And on the bottom of page 27, okay, they have another asterisk, okay? It says for amplification, see Appendix 2. So that's the second time they've told me to go in the back and study the Appendix 2. Now, I want you to go to page 47. On page 47, at the bottom of the page, you got another asterisk. It says, please be sure to read Appendix 2 on spiritual experience. So 3 times they've told us to go in the back and study the Appendix 2. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in the back and study the Appendix 2. Now, if you have a 4th edition, okay? If you have a 4th edition, the Appendix 2 is going to be on page 567. If you have a 3rd edition or newer, it's going to be 569. So most of y'all have the 4th edition, so go to page 567. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick I learned. The easiest way to do this, I want you to get you a pen, and I want you to underline sudden revolutionary changes, okay? I want you to underline that, okay? Then I want you to go down and I want you to underline educational variety because they develop slowly over a period of time. Now, you've got those 2 underlined, sudden revolutionary change, and then you have educational variety. Now, I want you to go up here and underline spiritual experience and spiritual awakening. Now, take you an arrow from spiritual awakening and draw it down to where it says educational variety because they develop slowly over a period of time. Then take an arrow and draw it from spiritual experience down to where it says sudden and spectacular upheaval or sudden revolutionary change. Now, spiritual experience happens sudden. Spiritual awakening happens slowly over a period of time. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to study this. We're going to go over it. We're going to break it down. We're going to show you some things. It says the terms spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading, that means studying it, shows that the personality change, sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. Now, the personality change, the awakening happens slowly, the experience happens sudden. It says, yet it is true, our first printing gave many readers the impression that these personality changes or religious experiences must be in the nature of sudden and spectacular upheavals. That's a spiritual experience. Happily for everyone, this conclusion is erroneous. That means most of us are not going to have the spiritual experience sudden. We're going to have the awakening. It says in the first few chapters, that's the doctor's opinion and Bill's story, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. See, most people who come into Alcoholics Anonymous and don't really know a lot, they think all of a sudden they're supposed to be changed. And I'm telling you, that's not how it works for most of us. For most of us, we're going to have the awakening. It's going to happen a little slower, and it's going to be in an educational variety. Now, let's keep reading. It says, among our rapidly growing fellowship, among our rapidly growing membership of thousands, you can take thousands out and put millions today. And such transformations, though frequent, are by no means the rule. Most of our experiences are what the psychologist William James calls the educational variety, because they develop slowly over a period of time. Now, each step I take, I get a little education. And each step I take, I awaken a little bit. And somewhere around 10 and 11, it cultivates in a spiritual awakening. So I want you to ask yourself, which one do you believe that you're going to have? Do you believe while you're down in detox, your room's going to light up in a great white light and all of a sudden you're going to be changed? Probably not. But do you believe if you take the steps like the book says, slowly but surely, some things can start to change? So whenever you see the term spiritual experience in the book, if that's not what you believe you're going to have, take it out and put awakening. Okay? Let's keep reading. I'm going to explain to you what an awakening is. It says, quite often friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. He finally realizes he has undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life, and that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. I want you to listen to this. What often takes place in a few months, say a few months for the awakening to really take hold, not a few years, a few months, could seldom have been accomplished by years of self-discipline. With few exceptions, our members find they have tapped an unsuspected inner resource. Where is God? Deep down in every man, woman, and child, which they presently identify with their own conception of a power greater than ourselves. Now, let's talk about what we just read. It says, quite often friends of the newcomer are aware of the difference long before he is himself. Look, if you got to go around telling people you changed, you have not changed. I can remember when I went to treatment. Where I went to treatment, when I left that facility, I went into sober living, and you couldn't go on a pass for a month. So it was about 3 or 4 months before I was able to go back home and be around some family members. Now, I've got an older brother, and he's the type of person that he doesn't pull any punches. He will tell you exactly how he feels, and that's it, whether you like it or not. So I go home for my first visit. And again, I'm about 3 or 4 months sober. And me and him are hanging out one Saturday. And me and him were like this. He knew me better than anybody knew me, and I knew him better than anybody knew him. So after Saturday afternoon, he says, is something wrong with you? And I went, no. He said, are you sick or something? I went, no, I feel fine. He says, something's changed with you. I just can't figure out what. Now, when he said that to me, I finally realized that something had changed. And what I realized was what I'd been trying to do for years finally took place in a couple of months. And what really hit me was there's no way it could have been me, because I'd been trying to do it my way and change for years and it never worked. So what suddenly was realized to me was I had undergone this profound alteration in my reaction to life, and that change wasn't brought about by me. Now, again, if you got to go tell people you changed, you haven't changed. Because look, I don't know about you, but my family, they were watching me the first 4, 5, 6, 8 months. And they didn't believe nothing that came out of my mouth, which I don't blame them, because 10 or 20 years of drunkenness will make a skeptic out of anybody. But they started to see my actions. And coming up on that 8-month, 9-month, year mark, some of their perceptions and ideas of me started to change. Back in the book. We're going to go over to page 568. It says, most of us think this awareness of a power greater than ourselves is the essence of spiritual experience. Our more religious members call it God consciousness. Don't matter what the hell you call the shit. Just take the steps and change. Most emphatically, we wish to see any alcoholic capable of honestly facing her problems in the light of our recovery, of light of our experience, can recover, provided she does not close her mind to all spiritual concepts. Now, a spiritual concept is a spiritual awakening. If you believe you're not going to have one, guess what you're not going to have? She can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find no one have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. And it does say spirituality, not religion. There's a difference. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery. But these are indispensable. Now, this last part, this is one of them normal-ass people who wrote this shit. It says there's a principle, which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, which will not fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. So what that means is, if you say you're not going to have this before you take the steps, you're not going to have it. See, if you condemn this prior to investigation, prior to doing it, it won't work. How many of y'all, the first time you had dope in your hand, before investigating it, before doing it, you went, this shit ain't gonna work. See, when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I was willing to believe just about anything except what I had been believing. Now, carrying this message, okay? Who can carry the message and who can't? It tells me in the 12 steps who can carry the message and who cannot. Now, it tells me if I've had this awakening of the Spirit as a result of the steps, which takes a couple of months, I can start carrying the message. Now, does it say you have to have a couple of years? It doesn't. It says a couple of months. Now, I don't know where people in the fellowship come up with some of this stuff. I hear people say you have to have a year to sponsor. I'm damn glad they didn't tell me that shit. What they told me was, hey, we're going to get you through the steps, and we're going to get you carrying this message because your life depends on it. Now, when I carry the message, when I take you through the steps, or I tell you, hey, this is the message. As a result of the steps, you can change. If you don't take the steps and change, that's not my fault. That's your fault. My responsibility is not to see that you take the steps. My responsibility is to carry the message to you, and what you do with the message, that's on you. Now, when anyone anywhere reaches out for help, I want the hand of AA to always be there, and for that I am responsible. Now, sponsoring other people, carrying this message. You know, sometimes I have to ask myself, are you doing enough? You know, because look, I'm going on over 19 years sober. I got a lot of shit as a result of the steps and the program and the fellowship. And you know, sometimes I don't want to go help somebody. I got to be honest with you. Look, I believe that the longer someone is sober, the more willing they have to be to carry the message. See, and a lot of people are just the opposite. They think the longer they've been sober, the less they got to do. When actually it's the complete opposite. See, I think somebody, when my situation, 19 years sober, I got to be more willing to carry this message than the new person with a couple of 3 or 4 or 5 months. Look, the person with 3 or 4 or 5 months sober, they ain't got a lot to lose if they were like me when I came in here. I got a lot to lose today. And I think a lot of people, the longer they've been sober, the more they rest on their laurels. And I think the longer you've been sober, the more you got to put the pedal to the metal, when actually a lot of people start letting off of the pedal. Now, if I'm honest with myself sometimes, I have to say I could do more in AA. And I think anybody who's honest with themselves can always say, I can do more. Now, carrying this message, okay, it's not my responsibility if you get it. My only responsibility is to carry the message. Now, the first time I ever went on a 12-step call, I was about 3 or 4 months sober. My sponsor comes by the sober living house I'm in and picks me up. He says, come on, we're going on a 12-step call. They've been calling from the hospital. They have an old man been drinking for 3 months straight, and they want us to 12-step. So I get in the car. I go with him. We get out, we go into the hospital, and we start talking to this man who is just out of it. He don't understand nothing we say. And we stayed for about 30 minutes. So we walking back to the car, and I tell my sponsor, I said, man, that was a waste of time. I don't think he got nothing out of that. And my sponsor, he looks at me and he says, you dumbass, we weren't there for him. We were there for us. Our only responsibility is to carry this message. If he gets it, fine. If he don't, fuck him. Now, if I could get other people sober, say, what makes me think I can get another person sober? I couldn't get me sober. And I have a lot of newcomers, the first 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people they sponsor, they come up and they go, man, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. All my sponsees are getting drunk. I said, well, are you carrying the message? Yeah, man, I was in the book with them. I said, you did nothing wrong then. That's not your responsibility that they get it. Your only responsibility is to carry the message. And the message is, you take the steps the way the book says, you can have a spiritual awakening. That's the message. Now, let's talk about carrying the message into our meetings. I'm going to say a few things here that probably a lot of people are going to disagree with, and that's okay. It won't be the first time. And I'm going to say a few things that some people are going to agree with. How many times have I been to a meeting and after they read the preamble, how it works, the tradition, you hear nothing else about the steps. Everybody wants to talk about their damn problems. My dog died today. Now, sometimes I'm in meetings and I hear nothing about the solution. It's all about the problem. What kind of a shitty day I'm having. Well, if you look at a newcomer coming into our fellowship who's having a shitty day, and all he hears of is other people having shitty days, guess what he's probably going to want to do after the meeting? He's probably going to want to go get drunk. So when I share in meetings, what I really try to share on is the solution to the problem. Look, if you're having a shitty day, do you need to talk to somebody? Absolutely. You know who you need to talk to about it? Your sponsor. Don't take up 20 minutes of our damn meeting talking about your bullshit. How many of y'all, when you share in meetings, you talk about how much dope you did, how much dope you sold, how many women you slept with, which are all lies anyway. If you're not talking about the solution, the steps, shut the hell up in our meetings. I'll say that again. Shut the hell up in our meetings. After all the shit's read in the beginning of the meeting, we ain't got but about 40 minutes to talk about the solution. And I don't think that's a lot of time to ask you to shut the hell up, quit talking about yourself, and talk about the solution. Something positive, something that the newcomer can hear where he says, I want some of that. Our program is a program of attraction, not promotion. Now, carrying this message, okay? I can carry the message in meetings. I can carry the message at work. I can carry it with friends. I can carry it with people I don't want to barbecue on Sunday. I can carry the message in a bunch of different ways. And I know a lot of people, I've been around a lot of people in this program who can talk this shit like the back of their hand. But when it comes to practicing these principles in all their affairs, I go, man, I don't know if I want what they got. Now, it says for me to practice these principles in all my affairs. And where it starts, the very first place it starts is at home. See, am I treating my spouse, my children, my family with love, patience, tolerance, and forgiveness? If I can't do it at home, what makes me think I can do it out in the real world, at work, with friends? See, I know a lot of people can do it for fucking an hour in a meeting, but once they leave the meeting, not much has changed. Now, we're gonna read something out of the big book, because look, I gotta tell you, some of the what I've been taught, the way I've been brought up in AA, they didn't keep a bridle on me. They said, look, we're going to show you how to take these steps, and we're going to cut you loose carrying this message, because we know If you don't start carrying the message, you're going to die. And that's sort of the way I've been taught. So I don't sit on people in this fellowship. We got to get you through the steps. And as a result of the steps, you can carry the message. I want you to turn your big book to page 100. Now, this is in the chapter Working with Others. On page 100, at the bottom of the page, it says, assuming we're spiritually fit. Now, it does say assuming. We can do all sorts of things alcoholics are not supposed to do. People have said, what people have said? The people who say this shit really don't know the power of the steps and the power of God. People have said, we must not go where liquor is served. Well, tell me where the shit that's at. We must not have it in our homes. We must shun friends who drink. We must avoid moving pictures which show drinking scenes. So that means you can't watch TV. We must not go into bars. Our friends must hide their bottles if we go to their houses. We mustn't think or be reminded about alcohol at all. Our experience, that's the ones of us who have taken the steps and had this awakening of the Spirit, show that this is not necessarily so. Now, I'm reading out the book now. I'm not making this shit up. We meet these conditions every day. An alcoholic who cannot meet them still has an alcoholic mind. That means they still have the obsession because they haven't taken any steps and changed. They just sit in a bunch of goddamn meetings. His only chance for sobriety would be someplace like the Greenland ice cap. And even there, an Eskimo might turn up with a rock and ruin everything. Ask any woman who has sent her husband to distant places on the theory he would escape the alcohol problem. I want you to listen to what they're fixing to tell you. In our belief, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man from temptation is doomed to failure. We're going to read that shit again. In our belief, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield the sick man from temptation is doomed to failure. If the alcoholic tries to shield himself, he may succeed for a time, but he usually winds up with a bigger explosion than ever. We have tried these methods. These attempts to do the impossible have failed. Now, the awakening of the Spirit as a result of the steps takes a couple of months. Now, most of y'all are in a treatment facility for a month and a half. Now, when you walk out the door of the facility, has the awakening really had time to take hold? Probably not. So in early recovery, first 2, 3, 4 months, is it sort of important that you sort of watch people, places, and things? It is in the beginning. But what they just told you, any scheme of combating alcoholism which proposes to shield a sick man from temptation is doomed to failure. Look, 4, 5, 6, 7 months down the road, you're not going to be able to shield yourself from people, places, and things. People are going to come around you. Drugs and alcohol are going to be put in front of you. It's coming. And people who don't take the steps, just go to meetings, fail and fail miserably. I'm not a big proponent of telling alcoholics, you have to change people, places, and things. I'm a big proponent of telling alcoholics, take the steps and you change so you ain't got to worry about all that shit. Now, an alcoholic like me, who actually takes the steps and changes, do they find it real easy, and is it real part of their thinking? Hey man, I really don't want to go around those people. I really don't want to go hang out there. Yes. See what they read, a person who has to shield themselves, they still have an alcoholic mind. They still have this obsession. And it don't matter where they go, who they shield themselves from, the obsession is going to take over. They're going to put one in them. They're going to set the allergy off, produce the craving, and they're going to be off to the races. Now, I've seen a lot of people burn up a lot of energy foolishly trying to change people, places, and things when they could take the same energy and effort, apply them to the steps, they change, and they ain't got to worry about changing people, places, and things. Carrying this message. I'm telling you, if you're listening to me right now, there's a good chance that you're at Woodlake Addiction Recovery Center. And I'm telling you that the message that you're getting, the treatment that you are getting, there's none better. And what you do and take and do with it, that's on you. We're going to give you every chance in the world to be successful. If you are successful, it's your fault. We can't take credit for it. If you fall flat on your face, it's your fault. We can't take credit for that either. What we're going to take credit for is giving you the message. And what you do with the message, that's on you. Now, Bill Wilson, he pretty much said that people who have the spiritual awakening, okay, people who have the spiritual awakening, there's just as many awakenings as there are people, okay? But there's a couple of things that are really, really, all spiritual awakenings have the same. Look, over 3 million recovered alcoholics. Everybody's awakening is a little bit different. But there's a couple of things that you can really look for in a real authentic spiritual awakening. And these are some things that you can pretty much look at to see if you're really changing. Now, I'm going to read them to you, okay? It says, 3 things in common that all spiritual awakenings have. We can do the same, we can feel the same, and we can believe the same. Now, what can we do the same? 3 things that they all have in common, these spiritual awakenings. We can do the same thing, we can feel the same thing, and we can believe the same thing. Now, what can we do the same? We can all stay sober. That's a pretty common thing on people who have had awakenings, okay? What can we feel? We can feel love, tolerance, patience, and forgiveness of our fellow man. That's what all awakenings have in common. We can feel these things. And the last one, what we all believe the same, is how we believe about God. So these 3 things we all have in common. We can do the same thing, we can feel the same thing, and we can believe the same thing. Now, to sort of close up and sum up step 12. Step 12 is a promise. Okay, and step 12 promises me, if I take the steps, as a result, I'm going to have a spiritual awakening. It doesn't say I'm going to stay sober. It doesn't say none of that shit. What it says is I'm going to have a spiritual awakening. Now, I want you to ask yourself this question. If you've been through treatment before, if you have been in AA before, or around AA before, I should say, and you started using again, I want you to ask yourself this question. Did you use the steps for what they were designed for, or did you use them for another purpose? Now, this is what the steps are designed for. If you use them for what they're designed for, they'll work. The steps are designed to give you a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps. It doesn't say, as a result of the steps, you'll stay sober. If you use these steps to try to stay sober, you're probably going to get drunk, because the steps are not designed to get you sober. The steps are designed, if you take them, to have a spiritual awakening. That's the result. Now, people who take the steps and have the spiritual awakening, is it easy for them to stay sober? It is. Is it easy for them to show another person love, patience, tolerance, and forgiveness? It is. Is it easy for them to believe differently about God today? It is. Now, if I would have told you what I wanted when I first came into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have sold myself short. Because the only thing I wanted when I came in, I didn't want to drink and drug anymore. I wasn't really concerned about living a spiritual life, being a good friend, I really wasn't concerned with none of that, because I was still selfish and self-centered to the core. The only thing I was thinking about was me. I want to be sober. Now, what this program has given me, I can never repay Alcoholics Anonymous back. Look, I like to think I do a lot in the program of AA. I like to think I help a lot of people, but I can never repay AA, because what AA has given me, man, I can't put a price tag on it. And I'm not talking about the material things it's given me. I'm talking about up here, what it's given me, the freedom, the contentment, being able to be happy in my own skin, unaided by any chemical or anything. Just wake up in the fucking morning and go, hey, shit, I'm happy. Or many of us, again, we wake up in the morning, we go, oh, fuck, I'm up. Most people, instead of doing what the first 103 pages of the big book say, they will burn up a lot of energy foolishly and get absolutely nothing but fall flat on their face. See, what most of y'all think is the easier, softer way, so you just go in the meeting and try not to do the steps, that's actually the hard way. The easier, softer way is actually just do the damn steps. But most alcoholics, when they first come in, they're so ass backwards, they think the easier, softer way is just go and sit at some meetings. But the ones of us who have taken the steps, what we know is the easier, softer way was taking the damn steps, like the book says. Now, last thing, and we'll end this session. I've been in meetings and I hear people say, my name is Jackass. I've been sober 5 years. I'm a recovering alcoholic. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what the goddamn hell are you still recovering from if you've been in here for 5 years? You missed some shit. See, because my book, my program, or the program of AA says it takes a couple of months. Now, I'm not a recovering alcoholic. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And where I've recovered is between this ear and this ear. The obsession has been gone and been gone a long time. And the reason I'm recovered is because I took the steps, and as a result, I had a spiritual awakening. And again, it says it takes a couple of months to take the steps and have the awakening of the Spirit. Now, we're going to end with this. I want you to ask yourself, okay? today, whether you're a day sober or you're 22 days sober, can you help another one of God's children? And the answer to that is yes. Now, I don't know about you, but I hurt a lot of God's children for a lot of years. I'm not in that business anymore. And it doesn't take much to go give somebody a reassuring word. Hey, man, I appreciate you. Hey, man, why don't you go first in the lunch line today? I went first, or when it's time to make a phone call. You don't have children, but you know your partner's got 2 or 3 children. Hey, man, why don't you go first when we do phone calls, and I'll go last. See, little things like that is what catapults people to change. If you wait until you get out of treatment to change, you missed a fucking boat. When can you start changing? Day one, minute one. And people who hit the ground running, when they walk out of that treatment center, they got a pretty good foundation. And I see them all the time. All the time. Newcomers, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months sober, sponsoring people with some good quality sobriety. Got 2, 3 sponsees. Their sponsees are sponsoring others, and their sponsees are sponsoring others. And it's a domino effect. This shit works. Y'all try it. Y'all have a good day. We appreciate you joining us in this session. And next session, we're going to start right back around again on step 1. Y'all have a good day.